everyone. My name is Madeline White. I am normally VP Marketing at Pool, but today I'm taking the role of leading this webinar, this masterclass for IQ Media Hub, which is an EU-funded project to help media professionals to better innovate and better face all of these challenges that are coming at us across the industry. And today, to help us innovate in a variety of ways and learn from some of the top Spanish-speaking publishers in the world, we've got Ismael Nafria. So, Ismael, thank you so much for being here today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you very much, Madeleine. And thank you for inviting me to talk about Clarín and the industry in general. So I'm Ismael Nafría. I'm a journalist and author and consultant and professor. I'm in
Long
based
list
in,
of job titles.
based in Barcelona, and I'm the author of five books, but two of them are about specific newspapers like the New York Times and Clarín and the digital transformation. Uh, and also, I've been working in past days in La Vanguardia, Grupo Godó in Barcelona, and Grupo Prisa in Madrid, and also I was the editor-in-chief of National Geographic in Spain. And for the last 7.5 years, I've been publishing a newsletter about our digital media industry. It's called Tendencias in Spanish. And well, I'm also teaching at some universities. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the main ideas of about Clarín and how Clarín uh, did or is doing their digital transformation. So I'm going to share my screen. Uh, okay, so just a second.
So, for a bit of context, if you speak Spanish and you don't know Ismael, you need to know Ismael and sign up to his newsletter. And we also have translated some of your work on the audiences, and we'll hopefully do the same on IQ Media Hub. And I've heard this presentation, and I've um, read the part of the book. I'm working through it in Spanish, but really, really interesting. The secrets behind their success, and I think these are really valuable lessons to take away for any sized publisher to succeed in digital subscriptions. So, Ismael, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Madeleine. So just a little bit introduction. I mentioned the two books that I've published about specific newspapers, but just to understand a little bit the kind of work I've been doing with these books. La Reinvención de the New York Times was published in 2017. There I try to explain the key elements of the digital transformation of the New York Times and trying to extract some lessons for all the industry, because I'm really convinced that many of the things that the New York Times is doing, even if it's obviously a big media and with a big newsroom, but there are many good practices that they are applying that I think could be very useful for other media, like the commitment to quality instead of quantity, for example, related to contents, or how they try to engage with and finding the loyal users that are really key for the business success. Also, how they define very well and apply the mission and strategy, how they have been adapting to the new professional profiles that they need to do everything. Also, their bet for visual journalism, how things, what kind of things they have been doing to redefine the print edition, and also considering the mobile is the main platform. So, some years after publishing this book, I was very interested in explaining something similar, but for the Spanish-speaking market, and Clarín was clearly the most interesting case, I think, or one of the most possible interesting case, because also the way they have approached to the digital subscription and the success they are having. Well, they are the number one Spanish-speaking media site regarding subscriptions right now. So I was trying again to understand very specifically and not superficially, but very deep understanding of all the things they are doing in order to get that. So it was a long process, like more than 3 years, like a lot of dozens of interviews. I was able to have access to very extensive documentation, internal documentation, and I was at the same time analyzing all the content. And after that, I got some conclusions, some ideas that are the ideas that I explain in the book. So here today, I've just selected like the five key elements that I think are the most important ones, or the ones that are really helping to explain how Clarín has been doing this digital transformation. So those are the 5 points I'm gonna explain about the strategy, the process of registration and subscription. I will talk a bit about the big data team they have, then how they organize they have been reorganizing and reorganizing the newsroom, because that's a process that never ends, we can say. And I'm going to talk also about the something very specific, that are the decisive notes. It's how they define the kind of article that helps them to get subscribers. And then I will offer some recent numbers and also one experience about using artificial intelligence on the product. So the first point is about the strategy, and for me, Clarín is a very good example of the importance of having a really well-defined strategy for all the company, and something that has been in the works for many years. So they have been using, like, the annual meetings they have, that for a multi-year planning of the activities, like starting at the end of the 90s and having this meeting at the end of the year, more or less, and talking about the plans for not only next year but the coming year. So I think that doing that every year and constantly, and being being always thinking about that, and that has been for me a very important part of the success of the different initiatives they have been launching because of that. So because in those meetings you define what do you want to do next year or in the coming years, and you define also a specific goal. So it's a very good way for all the company to have a clear idea where they want to go. So, for example, projects that they have been developing because of that were defined on those strategy meetings. For example, the Club 365, the 365 Club, it's a benefit club for members where they have commercial offers, and that was something developed many years ago, because in Argentina there was another very good success regard this kind of club from La Nación, the main competitor of Clarín. And so they wanted to do something similar. And Club 365 was like the first initiative, I'm going to mention that later, that they need a lot of to manage a lot of data, and it was the starting point for the big data team. So big data, it's another example of this strategy work. And for me, I'm going to mention later, it has been really key for many of the projects that Clarín has been doing. Then two very important projects, the registration and the subscription. Again, the decision and the thinking about what we have to do and how was decided on those meetings. And also, it's part of the strategy to decide which is the best organization that you can have for your newsroom. So, uh, again, on these meetings, they also fix some specific goals to achieve, and they got it. So, for example, they established that they wanted 500,000 subscribers at the end of 2023, and it was it they got it, that number, and the new goal now is reaching 1 million subscribers in the years ahead. And also a similar goal was to have 5 million registered users, and they got that number too. So, like it happens also in the New York Times, that they mentioned that they want to reach now 15 million subscribers at the end of 2017, and that's fixing that kind of goals for all the company. And I think it's a very good thing for many reasons, and for everybody to know where is not the end, but the next step to reach.
And I think,
But sorry, yeah,
I think whole company buy-in on that, to getting the whole company involved in
mm,
a goal that is directly linked to digital transformation, whether they're focused on print or maybe an
right,
aspect of the company that's not necessarily linked directly to digital subscriptions. I think that
right.
buy-in and that understanding of the value and the importance of digital transformation is essential.
Mm. I completely agree, and also I think it's very important that to send that message to everybody at the company, and because it's so easy to get lost sometimes in some companies that you don't know where you have to go or where they expect you to push. So, for example, this is just one example of they establish also, like, we are here and we want to go there. Like, we were a print newspaper, and we want to be a multi-platform media company, or we were a big traditional organization, but we want to be an agile, flexible, innovative organization, and all the other points that we can see here. That's also part of that strategy plan that they are changing and adapting every year, no? Then two other big projects. The project I mentioned, registration and subscription. Uh, I think that's well, and you know a lot about about this subject, but they decided to start with registration, user registration, and later to launch a digital subscription. That decision was taken in 2014, and why? It's because they really wanted, or they needed to understand their audience, and in order to see if there was really a space for digital subscriptions that makes sense. So they launched it. Well, first they launched what they call a silent registration, that it was not a registration with specific data from users, but just to start to understand a little bit the kind of audience they had. No. Another important thing in Clarin's case, and for the Argentinian market, it was that at the same time, La Nación was also interested in doing something similar. So I think they did a very interesting move, that was launching at the same time the registration. So for the now we feel that registration is something very common, and but it was not so common some years ago, or when they launched this in 2015. So that the two main newspapers in the market, they decide to do this together. It was like a clear message that this is something good, it's something we need, and they did it together. Not together, I mean at the same time, and I think it opened really a new stage for digital journalism in Argentina, and all the things that have happened since then make sense if you have registered users and you know your audience much better than before. So they started with this sign wall or registration wall, and with a metered model at the beginning with 20 articles per month before having to register. But that number is as it happened in many other has happened in many other papers and media sites, has been changing and reducing the number of articles that you let people read, and obviously during now the model is different. It's more dynamic, but at the beginning was this model. They could confirm that they had the essential and loyal users they need to really establish a good revenue user revenue model, and so that really changed also the vision of the business. It started to change the culture, internal culture related to audience management, and I think it's a step that again it's very important in any process of this kind, that you really change the minds of everybody on the side, on the paper or the media side, and for them to have a very clear idea of the importance of having loyal users as the center of your activity.
And I think
So,
it's almost like a stepping stone
mm,
towards subscription, not only for a user, in terms of moving towards subscriptions for the future, but also in terms of internal buy-in and understanding the importance of conversion steps and moving readers through a funnel rather than just having an engaged audience, but then not monetizing them any more than a bit from
right.
from advertising. And it's
Exactly.
a
Not,
proof of concept with lower risk. Um,
mhm.
reasons.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, and also it's a way to really understand what can you do with that
Yes. Yeah.
audience, and so well, here just a few numbers of the evolution of the registered users, reaching at the end of 2023 the 23 the 5 million registered users, and as also as it happened in many other places, if you have 5 million registered users, then you can have like they have they had at that moment like 10% of those users as a paid users, like 500,000 in Clarin's case, no? Uh, so yeah, that was the starting point for this for the next step. It was the subscription project that has been really, I would say, like a key element of the business of Clarin today, and for the future, clearly. As exactly the same that has happened with the New York Times or other sites that now they have like user revenue. It's like it's the main point, the main revenue source, or the second one, or it's going to be the main one, probably in many cases. In the New York Times case, it is clearly, but in other papers, maybe the process is not has been not so fast so far, but it's gonna be so again. So they launched the digital registration in 2015, and 2 years later, in April to 2017, they launched the digital subscription. Uh, and again, it was like it's a key moment for the history of Clarín. That's a graphic we don't have to pay attention to. That's only to explain how usually that this kind of project the evolution of a subscription project. Like you are going up successfully, but there are many actions that you have to implement and to take during. So it's not like you launching and that's it. No, it's just the starting point, and then you have to apply a lot of initiatives, a lot of things in order to grow in the years ahead. So that's
Yeah.
only part of that trip, uh, and but it's also something similar that happens in other sites. Uh,
I think it looks very similar to what we see in the industry in general, is that, and especially for someone who launched registration first, you'll kind of slow up at the beginning as your most engaged readers subscribe, and in particular your registered members. And
mhm,
then there's often moments of plateau afterwards as you reach kind of the end of maybe that bubble of the most engaged segments. And that's when you need to start testing more dynamic models or trying different, I guess, strategies, different bundles of different types
mhm.
of subscription models to attract a slightly wider audience. Um, and clearly that's what they're continuing to do in order to overcome those. You can see some slight, not stagnation points, but moments where it's slightly flatter.
Mhm.
And they manage to move those up.
Exactly. And for example, some of the points that you can see here are like starting a dynamic paywall model, or for example, creating a specific product digital team on the newsroom,
Yeah.
and it helps to launch more initiatives, and so many different things that you can do to
Yeah.
increase the number of both registered users and
Yeah.
subscribers.
It makes me think of an interview that I did the other day for the audiences was about how there's no subscription ceiling, and that it's simply that you have your core audience and you're in within that the core perfect ready to subscribe audience, and then that
Mhm.
keeps you need to keep growing it out. And what I'm seeing on that graph is the final one in November 2020 is having corporate subscriptions, and so that's almost like a another layer of a different type of audience that maybe didn't feel
Exactly.
included or weren't convinced by the other offer. So now we have a separate, almost slightly niche subsection that they're trying to convert with this new innovative um,
Mhm.
offer.
Exactly. So we can go ahead and let's talk a little bit about one of the other main five elements of this transformation. It's a big data team. So for Clarín, one of the main goals right now is to become a data-driven company. It means in your decision-making process, you want the data to have a very important part. It's not that you decide everything exactly because of the data, but it's informed by data, obviously. So, and I would say that if you compare with other companies in the region, I think that having this big data team uh, for Clarin has been really something very helpful, and I would say probably something really key for the success of the model, because they have been applying the work of this big data team in different projects. For example, in fact, it was the first project was the 365 Club that I mentioned. because it was the first time that they really need to understand what people were doing with the cards, and buying things, and accepting offers and things like that. And the only way to manage that is being able to manage a lot of big numbers of data, and then from that starting to understand your audience, and they starting to develop internally a team with those skills, that it's not something that you have before. So just going back a little bit about the big data team, just an interesting thing is that uh, it was created inside the business team, not the IT team, and it because the people who need that was really the business team launching the club. So, and now they are part of the big IT team, with a specific role, and it's probably right now, I think the latest number I have, it's around 20 people working on the big data team. So I think it's very important in any case, and depending on your possibilities, but to have a good team to manage this is really key, I think. And then let's talk a little bit about the newsroom organization. As I mentioned, that's a process that it's never finished. So if we start with when there is the paper web merger internally, it was in 2008. After that, there has been like 5 or 6 reorganizations. The last one, it was in 2022. They define 4 areas and 2 main goals for the teams. And I think it's another very interesting point, and different approach probably from other media to explain how Clarín works. So Clarín has like 2 main goals. One is attracting new subscribers, obviously, and retaining the ones they have. And the other one is to, at the same time, try to reach large audiences, because the advertising and having new users and the relevance of the media depends a lot on that. So there are those 2 main goals. They are trying to reach both of them at the same time. How? They have created teams that are more oriented to getting new subscribers, and teams that are more oriented to reach mass audience. And so they have organized the newsroom in this way, like 3 teams, more related, not completely related, but more with the goal, thinking about how we get subscribers. And then the mass audience team, like it's where the breaking news team, the SEO team, the social networks, the team who manage the front page, the video and photography, they are working more in that area. Obviously, it's not that they only work for that. So it's not like uh, white or black. It's not. I mean, they can interchange roles, but it's important that when they establish the goals for each team, the goals are related to these main areas. So that's a graph of the two of the teams for reaching subscribers, and then another one that is specifically about loyalty, and then the masses audience, that it's the other big group they have. And the last point I wanted to mention regarding the key points, it's the concept of the decisive notes, that uh, I really like this concept, and I think it's also a very simple way, but a clever way to define the kind of article or the kind of content that you want to produce in order to get new subscribers. So that that concept is an internal concept that they developed in a document, and with talking with many people, and studying the kind of content they were producing. Internally, it was named the Decisive Note, La Nota Decisiva in Spanish. And the main point of this is things that we are going to do to convince users to subscribe to Clarín. So, uh, the, trying to define these decisive nodes, what they established, they studied which were the reasons why a reader is going to make that decision to subscribe. No, because there is always well, you know also perfectly this that taking the decision of subscribing, it's not just for one thing, or probably it's a lot of things, like regarding the if you agree with the brand and you feel comfortable and other things. But the truth is that there is one day that you subscribe, and you subscribe because of something specifically, and usually it's because there is this shock that you get to a point that you cannot read more,
Yeah.
or whatever. So that's something that happens. I mean, it's so they wanted to create enough opportunities for somebody to get to that point and get a good result because the quality of the content they were offering. So um, what how can we explain what kind of node is a decisive node? Let's find some of the explanations they have offer. Also, knowing that you are not offering, I mean, all your daily production, you will have some specific decisive notes, and then many other contents that are free to read, that it's part of the two strategies. But those decisive notes, they have like some essential elements. The idea of exclusiveness, it's something that you only will find at Clarín. uh, Quality and depth are two main characteristics of that kind of articles. Also, articles or content that offer a great digital experience, and in many cases, articles that have some kind of utility for the users. And if we examine a little bit more in detail the characteristics of these decisive nodes, we will find things like again, they are nodes that it's an exclusive from Clarín, or it looks like, because sometimes you can talk uh, about the same things at other media, but you do it in a way that only you are doing in that way. Or usually there is an author signing the article. uh, Usually are related to current events, but not always. The title is really decisive, and it's very important. Well, like in any headline, it's very important just to get somebody to read that. Or here is the same. So it's also important to have very good headlines. The focus of the article. So Clarín has like uh, as I mentioned, there are some specific sections that work. They have more decisive notes published, so that's also part of the decision what kind of notes they are producing. The length. Usually, the decisive notes are a little bit longer than the regular articles. Let's say it's not always the same, but it's about 1,000 and 1,500 words and for each note. Not always, but that's very common. Also, there are some topics that usually work better than others. Regarding the type of notes, there it depends. So it's not. For example, it could be an opinion article that some of the opinion articles work very well, but it could be a long report. It could be really a very useful note about service node, or well, it depends. So it's not that just one type of node. It could be different type of nodes. And again, the idea of depth and usefulness, it's really when you read that kind of notes, you have that feeling that okay, this is really well explained. It's something I can take something from here. It could be many things, obviously, but that idea of completion and having a good experience is really very
Worth
important.
paying.
And then just to talk a little bit, because I mentioned that every day they produce some specific notes, these kind of notes, but you have a lot of other content produced every day, and clearly for specifically for loyal users that are the ones who are probably using more the home page of the site. How you manage the home page, it's something that has been evolving too, uh, but it's very important because that space it's the one you have to show uh, what you can offer every day. And so here is a few things to consider that I think are important to mention. One thing is that the decisive notes have to have a place in the first scrolls of the visit, because and they when it's a note for subscribers, they have a specific sign on the homepage that you can identify like in many other places. So you have to manage that homepage combining free pieces of content with those decisive notes. And to be more specific about this and to try to explain with real numbers, appro- well, more or less, if they have like 500,000 daily visitors for the homepage, from that 500,000, the ones who go 3 times a day to the homepage are only 5%. And more than 40% of that, those 500,000 people only visit the home once a day. So the the idea here is to try to understand why you don't have to be changing your homepage continuously and offering something new every minute. No, it's not necessary at all. In fact, it's much better if you have like several moments in the day, like 1 or 2 or 3 times a day, that you are like changing some parts of that, but you keep the most important notes and the most important messages that you want to offer to your audience. You keep those messages in a very good position. At the end of the day, what you get doing these things this way, uh, you get that 500,000 people that have visited you to really find the most important things you want to offer today. And I think it's something that has happened in other media sites too, that you want to have a clear message for your audience that those are my main pieces of content from today for today, and it's good if you check that and at least you find that. I mean, because if not, and then there are many pieces, like few pieces that even don't go to the homepage because maybe they work through social networks or on search or whatever. So just to finish this presentation, I want to share some of the latest numbers and trends that the business of Clarín. Basically, the like I'm doing always the same with the New York Times and looking at how the revenues from subscription and from advertising evolve. And in this case, we can see a very a very important goal reached in 2023, that it's if you compare the print and digital revenues, being print both advertising and circulation, and digital both subscriptions and advertising. Uh, right now, the digital revenues at Clarín at 55% of total. That's really a key moment, I would say, for any media business. Like your digital activity, it's offering you more revenues than the print
Yeah.
activity, and it's something that many media companies are trying to reach. Some of them are there, obviously, and even with bigger numbers, but it's really an important point.
Mm.
And if we have a closer look and we check like which are the main revenue sources, still this last year it was print circulation, but right now the digital circulation it's number two, and a very important percentage of the total revenues. And obviously, if you have a look at the trend, I mean, it speaks by itself. So, uh, another thing that we can check, it's one information they are offering. It's what part of the uh, revenue digital revenues are covering the cost of the people you have at the
Mm.
company.
Yeah.
Not all the cost, obviously, but specifically the team, the human team that is working there. And again, another very important goal was reached in 2023, when more than 100% of that cost is covered by digital revenues. And this is the latest number I have from Clarín about regarding the total subscriptors, and you can see so they are going to the million they want to reach. We'll see when and how, but it's going up. And obviously, this year it has been a little bit more difficult, also for the economic situation of the country. And but the the plan is going well, I would say, and I think it's also something inspiring for many other media companies, because if you think about Argentina is a country with with a lot of and a very difficult economic situation. So, but it's possible to develop that kind of business even in countries in that situation. So I think it's a good message, or at least is the message I'm trying to extract from this experience and to offer to other countries and other media companies, that it's very important to believe in your product, to really to apply the best strategies and techniques, and to have very good people doing that, and but believe in that, and establish a good plan, and 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 you can get it. I think it's that's for me, that's the message. So just to summarize what we have seen, the total revenues for digital subscriptions last year were the 32% of total revenues from Clarín. So that's I think a very good point that they have reached. And the last thing I'm going to mention is that also in regarding the artificial intelligence area, they have been doing a lot of things. Like, for example, it's something that it's very easy to check on the website. If you go to clarin.com and you check any news that you find, you will find a tool at the beginning of the text that that offers you to find a summary, an artificial intelligence summary of created summary of the article, and then other options like, for example, having a list of the a chronological explanation of that news, or having like the main words from the people from that talking about that news, or having a table with the main data that you can find on that news. Also finding the same news but in a Q&A format, that's very interesting, or a glossary of the main concepts, ideas, names, etc., that you can find on the article. That's something they have been doing for many months now. It's a tool called Walter that they have been developing with Gaio Media, another company, and they are also doing something similar for sound, for analyzing sound. Like a speech or from the president, or whatever. And that's it. I think those are the main points that I think it's a summary of the book. And I hope it's useful for other colleagues and media companies. And so yeah, thank you.